the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Friday morning. Hopefully everybody's doing fantastically well. You had a great week. You're looking forward to a good weekend, and you're taking all Yaron's rules for life seriously and having a phenomenal time. All right, I'm curious about sound. One, I made some changes to OBS that hopefully should solve this problem. Let me know. Sound is good, Action Jackson says. Let me know if that is universally agreed upon, that is the conclusion. Sound is good today, Ian said. Maybe it's good forever. If this solves it, then we are a bit low in volume. All right, that can be fixed. Surprising, but that can be fixed. All right, that better in terms of low volumes. That better in terms of volume. Let me know if that's better, and then I can certainly adjust it. Miroslav says a bit low, but was that before I changed it or after I changed it? Jennifer says now it's good. All right. Right now, East Coast time is 12 o'clock. So here's the thing. I'm probably going to run this poll more than once, and so you'll have multiple opportunities to answer this. But I am running a poll about if I converted the show, instead of having kind of a morning, early afternoon show and then an evening show, and having a news roundup every day, then followed up by a more serious topic, and then doing it 5 days a week, not doing anything on Saturday, not doing anything on Sunday. If I did that, what I guess my question to you guys is, would there be something? What would be the best hours for me to do that? Right? Is it 2 to 4, 12 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 8 to 10? It looks like the least favorite time slot is 4 to 6, which is probably good because it's not a very good time slot for me. So now the question is, 12 to 2 or 2 to 4? My guess is that that's going to depend on whether Europeans are answering the question or Americans are answering the question, whether it's East Coast people or West Coast people. And this might vary between the people who typically listen to my news hour and people who listen to my evening shows. But please vote. Please let me know. And I don't know if I'm going to make the change. I don't know when I'm going to make the change. But it would be helpful. It would be helpful. Would be helpful to know what your guys' preference is. I've put up the volume. Let me know if the volume is good now. Let me know if you get any kind of distortions, any kind of hissing, or any kind of anything. But is the volume good? Is this the right level for volume? It should be. It looks like all the markers, although but it might still be low. So let me know what you guys think. All right. What else? So please, fill out we've got 30 people watching and 20 people voting. So please vote on the thing. All right, so the echo is gone. Sound is great. Still a little low here. And you sure you've got your volume all right? I mean, we're going to take this. That's got a scary territory. Take this to... okay, let me know if this is better. This should be plenty loud. But if it's not, then there are more things I can do. And let me know if distortions come back. All right. So that was point number one, is the poll. Please vote. Please let me know. Everything's East Coast time. Everything is PM. We can play around with it. Maybe it's 1 to 3. Maybe it's 3 to 5. We can play around with them as well. But for now, 12 to 2, 2 to 4 look like they're the winners. So we'll carry this into the evening shows and see what people are thinking about that. All right, quickly, I want to remind everybody, particularly those of you in Europe, that I am doing a public speaking seminar in London, October 18th, small group, It is expensive, but sort of be in the hundreds of dollars, but not in the thousands of dollars. Would love to have a small group of people to do it. We've already got a few. We're going to cap it at 10, so I won't have more than 10. 5, 6, 7, 8 is really, really good. Would be really, really good. Sign up. And the way to sign up is basically to send me an email. Yaron at Yaron Brooks Show. Yaron at Yaron Brooks Show, and then I'll send you more information. Those of you who've already written to me, I apologize I haven't got back to you. I will get back to you over the weekend. I want to see if I get a few more bites, a few more people interested. All right. Let's see. Reminder to use the super chat to ask questions, and yeah, let's jump in. Quite a bit of AI news. There's every day seems to be AI news, but a couple of interesting items coming out on AI that I thought I would share with you guys. So there's a study that was done by an analyst firm called Forrester that does they do a lot of employment data, a lot of employment consulting, contracts, things like that. So they're employee experts on employment, and so they did some projections in terms of what are jobs, how does AI affect jobs by 2030? So that is in the next 7 years. And by their estimates, 2.4 million jobs in America will be replaced by AI. That is, will be replaced by artificial intelligence, by software, over the next 7 years. That is a significantly lower number than a lot of the panic and hysteria that we were hearing when ChatGPT first came out, and there was generally a lot of panic here. Of course, it's only 7 years into the future. That could change dramatically as we move further into the future. Also, let's see, the kind of jobs are interesting. So it's primarily white-collar jobs. So the ones that are most at risk are things like technical writers, social science research assistants, proofreaders, copywriters, and generally administrative assistant positions. Those are the ones that are most at risk. And they've got a whole list here of, legal. The legal profession is most at risk. People working in the legal profession, doing research in the legal profession, at most risk. And then it's kind of life sciences, life, physical, and social sciences, office and administrative, and so on. But it is white collar, much more substantive than loss of jobs is the number of jobs that are going to be affected. That is where what will happen is you'll get a AI to assist. So your job will be assisted by AI. That is the more substantial number. It is projected that most research jobs, most white-collar jobs over the next 10 years are going to have a component that involves interacting with AI. So AI is going to dominate kind of the employment landscape, particularly the white-collar, if you will, employment landscape of the next 10 years. Interesting, of course, people are very worried about AI. There's a lot of panic. There's a lot of hysteria. There's a lot of doomsday sayers. And of course, we all know, we talked about this in a previous show, that the heads of all the AI companies have gone to Washington and kind of almost groveled and begged that Washington regulate them and come up with regulations to save humanity from the plague that is AI. The latest biggest doomsday projections are now AI related. I think that's replaced climate change as the number one fear that people have is yeah, we're all going to die because the machines are going to turn against us. Anyway, not to worry. You really shouldn't worry because Congress is on top of this. We now have a bipartisan group of U.S. senators that meet weekly to talk and discuss issues related to AI and to consider regulations around AI to limit their damage. This group is led by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. It includes, who is from New York, of course, it includes Todd Young, a Republican from Indiana, Mike Rounds, a Republican from South Dakota, and Martin Heinrich, a Democrat from New Mexico. All of them, I am assured and have told without question, have PhDs in computer science and are proficient in the use and writing of algorithms for AI. I mean, who are these losers to decide on the fate of one of the most revolutionary technologies in human existence? What do they know about AI? What does Chuck Schumer really know about computers? Does he know where the power button is? Maybe. I mean, really, these guys have no clue. They don't have a technical background. They have no idea what is involved. And what are the risks? What are they truly afraid of? Well, in the article describing this, it tells us what they're worried about. They're racing, because they're really worried, and it's a race. They're racing to formulate rules that protect Americans. Oh, God help us. They protect Americans from AI's worst threats. What are AI's worst threats? Such as biological weapons. I guess AI will produce biological weapons and place them in the hands of people who we cannot trust and who might inflict on all of us. And mass unemployment. So the biggest threats, according to this, very prestigious group of senators who I'm sure know exactly what they're talking about and really understand this issue well, is biological weapons and mass unemployment. Now, I get biological weapons, right? I mean, what ChatGPT has the potential of doing is placing in the hands of pretty much anybody the knowledge and ability, maybe, to produce biological weapons. Maybe the bad actors can use ChatGPT to produce chemical or biological weapons or other weapons that have the potential to be truly disastrous. But the reality is that, this is something that to some extent can be addressed through regulations, but the knowledge is out there. The knowledge is out there. With ChatGPT or without ChatGPT, the knowledge is out there. And then equal to biological weapons is mass unemployment. So not only are these four senators likely completely and thoroughly ignorant of AI, what it means, how it works, what it does, but they're equally or even more ignorant, actually, given the history, I would say even more ignorant, if that is possible, they're more ignorant of economics. ChatGPT, AI will not create mass unemployment. And if this is what the senators are worried about, please, what do you do? What do you do? This is where, partisanship would be really, really good. Wouldn't it be great if they fought and they don't get along and Republicans and Democrats hate each other so much that they can't work together to formulate a strategy to regulate AI and to prevent mass unemployment? I've always told you, when Republicans and Democrats get together and they agree on stuff, that's when you have to run for the hills. But don't worry, because the article goes on to say, in interviews with senators, former staffers, and close observers, optimism is running high that the rare but mighty alliance between Democrats and Republicans, can pull off the extraordinary, complex task of confronting AI. With Schumer at the helm. I mean, what we need here is heroic music of the charge of the cavalry or something. With Schumer at the helm so far, they've organized 3 briefings over the summer to educate senators on the technology and are preparing 9 so-called insight forums to continue that work for the fall. Major tech and industrial leaders, including Meta Platforms' Mark Zuckerberg, Tesla's Inc.'s Elon Musk, and Bill Gates, are slated to attend the first gathering on Wednesday. And we know that the senators will be all ears. They'll be super dedicated to learning from these giants of technology, who they are suing in court and trying to break up and trying to pass laws to decapitate. What do you even do with this? So, yes, our senators are here to rescue us from the dangers of AI. If there was a God, God help us. Since there isn't one, I don't think anything is going to help us. It's a disaster. All right, we're going to skip that. We are going to skip that. Yeah, just a quick comment for all the doomsayers out there with regard to the dollar and the dollar's replacement and the dollar's collapse and the dollar's disappearance. And the dollar was down a little bit yesterday, and it made the news because the dollar's been going on this streak of upticks. It just gets stronger and stronger, almost on a daily basis. And it is on a daily basis. And the dollar is as strong as it is on an uptick swing as strong as it's ever had, maybe since 2005. Nobody's seen it, anything like this. Now, that does not say the dollar will weaken. It's not to say the dollar's not overpriced. But if you look at the dollar-yen ratio right now, it's approaching 150. The euro is holding up fairly well. The pound is holding up fairly well. But for many other currencies, the dollar is just ripping. Is this good? It's good for us in the sense that as Americans, it's the yuan has collapsed. So the Chinese currency has collapsed. The ruble we know has collapsed. So we've got a dollar that in terms of importing things from China, in terms of importing goods from much of the rest of the world, we're in great shape. So U.S. consumers are in good shape. We can buy the best products from the world at a lower and lower price because our dollar is stronger and stronger. Of course, the reason the dollar is strong is because the interest rates are high. Interest rates high also making us as Americans poorer. They're causing assets to decline, real estate prices decline, mortgage rates to go up, loan to go up. We become more indebted. Our interest on the payments goes up. So there are good things about a strong dollar, cheaper imports, and very bad things about a strong dollar, not the strong dollar itself, but the cause of the dollar is high interest rates. Those high interest rates are, of course, costing us, each of us, in our pocketbooks. But it is interesting to watch the dollar when so many of our friends have made these predictions about its imminent collapse. And of course, they're still making predictions about its collapse, and maybe one day it will collapse, and they'll say, we told you so. But they've been saying this for a long time, and the exact opposite seems to be happening in spite of what they've been saying. And again, the main reason for the dollar strengthening is weakness, economic weakness across the world, in other places, and high interest rates in the United States. All right. Yeah, interesting story out of Cuba. So Cuban authorities say they have broken up a human trafficking ring, and they arrested 17 people as a consequence. Human trafficking out of Cuba, I mean, not horribly surprising, but then you read about what kind of trafficking this was. This was not the typical human trafficking of bringing in women or children for sex or for things like that. The human trafficking that the Cubans are accused of is trying to lure young Cuban men to serve in the Russian military in Ukraine. So this suggests a number of things. One is, oh my God, Russia is pretty desperate if they're trying to get young Cubans to come and fight for them in Ukraine. But we know Russia's desperate, so this is really a surprise. But what's really shocking is, given Cuba's close relationship historically with Russia, that Cuba would stop this. According to a Cuban Interior Minister, as a result of the investigation, 17 people have been arrested so far, among them the internal organizer of these activities. They said the people involved in this would be punished up to 30 years in prison, possibly a life sentence or even a death penalty, depending on the severity of the so-called crimes. According to the Cubans, Cubans are not allowed to fight as mercenaries overseas. I mean, that's surprising given that Cuba has mercenaries in Venezuela and even in Mexico, arguably. Cuba has sent mercenaries. But somehow there is a break between Cuba and Russia, which is surprising and something just to keep an eye on. I don't have an answer for this. I haven't seen it very well explained in the media, what exactly is going on. But it does appear that Cuba and Russia the Cubans are not sending their young people to die in Ukraine, even voluntarily. They're not allowing them to go voluntarily, and indeed they're putting them in jail if they helped organize such a mission. That is interesting, given, again, a long history of very close relationships between Cuba and Russia. Indeed, Cuba couldn't have survived as a communist regime without the help of Russia. All right, another quick story from China, and that is that Apple stock has been declining significantly over the last few days, and some of it at least has to do with the fact that the Chinese government is starting to clamp down on iPhone use within China, and it started in the same way as the United States started with TikTok. Basically, what they're doing is they're banning the use of iPhones by government officials in China. So government staff is not going to be allowed to have an iPhone. And of course, the Chinese are saying the same thing as the Americans say when we ban Chinese equipment. National security, they're listening in, they're using the iPhones to spy on us, which is a bit of a joke because if you know the history, the Apple has been, has fought the U.S. government about gaining access to the iPhone, about trying to break into iPhones. Apple is the one company that seems to be insisting on protecting our privacy at least vis-a-vis the government. Beijing has told employees at some central government agencies in recent weeks to stop using Apple iPhones at work. There is a fear that this clampdown will broaden. Apple sells a lot of its product in China. China is a big market for Apple. Not only does it actually do the assembly of the iPhones in China, but it also sells significantly into that market. Apple stock has been beaten up as a consequence of this development. This is the little tits for tats that most of them are nonsensical and silly that China and the United States are involved in right now as part of what is perceived to be a second Cold War. Let's hope it stays a Cold War, not a hot war. This is the kind of back and forth that is going on. Some of it's serious. There's every single reason to believe that Huawei technology, wireless technology being used in routers in the U.S. were actually used for Chinese spying. So banning those made complete sense. TikTok, really? That's just silly and stupid and you just use symbolically. But just again to stir up angst and to stir up infighting, not particularly meaningful at all. China demand for iPhones in decline, and that explains a significant decline in Apple stock over the last few days. All right, let's see. Interesting. CNN just ran a poll, an election poll, news story closed on me, looking basically at Republican candidates and how they do versus Biden. So taking them one at a time and looking at how they would do versus a Biden presidency. And it's interesting. It's Biden is, of course, unbelievably unpopular. I mean, it's indeed shocking how unpopular Biden is with the American electorate. Even among Democrats, over 60% of Democrats think the Democrats need to find somebody else, that Biden is too old to do the job, and they are, so there is very little enthusiasm, excitement, and ultimately support for Biden if he ran again. Of course, we all know that Trump has very low likability and very low levels of support among the general public, outside of the diehard Republicans, outside of 50% of Republicans who will vote for him, it seems, no matter what. Trump has a really hard time mustering support, and he actually has greater support than I would expect, but that's primarily because he's going up against Biden. So if you look at a matchup between Trump and Biden, it looks like mostly a tie, maybe with Biden, a percent ahead of Trump, but not much more than that. So it's basically, for all intents and purposes, a tie. Right now it's 47-46 actually for Trump, but that's meaningless. That's basically a tie. 5% saying they would choose a different candidate. 2% say they don't plan to vote. This is among, this is in the CNN poll. If you look at other candidates, Vivek does as well as Trump, 47 to 46. Actually, no, Vivek does a little worse than Trump, 46 to 45. So Biden beats Vivek 46 to 45. Christie beats Biden 44 to 42. DeSantis, absolute tie. This would shock Scott, I know, but complete tie with Biden, 47. Now again, these are early polls. I have no idea what they mean, if they mean anything, but that is a complete tie for DeSantis. Mike Pence, supposedly, and Tim Scott both beat Biden 46 to 44. I think that makes sense. They're both perceived as reliable. I'm not sure Mike Pence, if put under scrutiny, would actually get to 46. But you know who beats Biden by a big margin and solidly, and really trounces Biden on a national poll, a Republican? Well, if you followed, you should know, because it's the one I haven't mentioned yet, and that's Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is the only Republican candidate to actually have more than a 2-point advantage over Biden, and in this case, it's a 6-point advantage. Nikki Haley beats Biden 49 to 43. 49 to 43. I mean, God, she would win the presidency if she ran. She's smart, she's articulate, she's solid. She's not as radical as I would like her to be, but maybe that's what makes her electable. I think she's good on foreign policy. I think she's good on just basic stuff. She was brave enough to accuse both Republicans and Democrats of overspending. Vivek loses to Biden by 1 percentage point, 46 to 45. So basically a tie. He's actually the only Republican that outright loses to Biden. Trump beats Biden by a percentage, although I don't think that's true. Tim Scott and Mike Pence beat Biden by 2 percentage points. Ron DeSantis is tied. Nikki Haley beats Biden by 6 points. Now, again, I don't know what this means. I don't know what the value of it is. Let's hope. I hope, at least. I don't know about you guys. I hope that this helps her within the Republican primary. So let's hope she uses this to gain some visibility among Republicans and to gain a solid footing. All right, quickly, this is just a ridiculous. I just wanted to read you something. So there's a new institute being founded. It's called the Institute for the Critical Study of Zionism. And Zionism, of course, being the ideology of the founding of the State of Israel, which I am critical of. But listen to this. This is the description. And I don't know. I might pay somebody if they could explain what this actually means. But here's the description of the Institute from, I guess, its website. The Institute for the Critical Study of Zionism aims to support the delinking of the study of Zionism from Jewish studies, and to reclaim academia and public discourse for the study of Zionism as a political, ideological, and racial and gendered knowledge project, intersecting with Palestine and decolonial studies, critical terrorism studies, settler colonial studies, and related scholarship and activism. Now, all of that was one sentence. Studying Zionism, its direct work for the Israeli state and its other work, is politically necessary. The rigorous transnational study of Zionism as a political ideology and practice, and of Zionist institutions as political actors, is necessary for the political pursuits from democracy to decolonization. Now, it's interesting, because this is just a left-wing, anti-Semitic, and just an anti-Israeli, just radical left, horrific institution, and supported by just horrific academics. But I find it interesting. The first in that first sentence, just the first section says that it's dedicated to the delinking of the study of Zionism from the study from Jewish studies, right? And of course, the reason they did that, the reason they put that right there, the delinking of Zionism from Jewish studies, is say, look, oh no, we're not anti-Semites. This is not about Jews. It's just about Zionism. We're limiting it to Zionism, as if you can make that separation. And as if Zionism means anything outside of its relationship to Jewish studies. But of course, what is it linking it to? And of course, you've got intersectionality here, intersecting with Palestinian and decolonial studies. This is all kind of critical race theory, intersectionality, all brought in to attack Israel and to delegitimize the state of Israel. It's critical Zionism studies instead of critical race studies. And it's perfect. This is where the left is. It is run by people who are big in the BDS, the Boycott Israel movement. It is run by people who are horrifically anti-Israel or consistently anti-Israel. And it is an expression of deep-seated hostility to Israel because it is a successful, prosperous state, and combined with real anti-Semitism. All right. On that wonderful piece of news, we will call that a day. We've got 3 questions. John has put in $400. Yaron, will you review the 2011 album "Join Us" by They Might Be Giants? I know that your song reviews $100 per song, but maybe you could pick 4 of your favorites and go more in depth with them. I really hope you chuckle a couple of times at least and get some enjoyment for this album like I have over the years and still do. All right, thank you, John. Really appreciate the support that you provide the show, and thanks for getting me to do the album. I will look at it and do some kind of review of it. All right, we only have basically this is us from John, so we only have 2 questions. So this will be a short show, which is fine with me. But if you'd like to ask a question, if you have something you'd like to ask, please do so now, because there's not going to be a lot of time once I answer these questions. We're done. James says, why has no libertarian or objectivist never held a high-level position in the United States? The Mountain West, Texas, and other states all have that potential for someone to win. However, it appears people put up bad candidates. Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to comment about libertarians. I mean, the Libertarian Party is a joke, always has been a joke. They put up joke candidates. They put up horrible human beings as candidates for many of these jobs, and they have, people are not going to vote for anarchy. They're not going to vote for as a the number one thing on your plaque. I don't know. You're running on legalizing everything people are against. So you've got to have a serious candidates, and there are not that many serious people who want to run. And objectivists are never going to win in the Mountain West. The Mountain West is not pro-freedom. And the Mountain West is not in a position to elect an objectivist, a complete separation of state from economics kind of person. Now they've been city council members who've been objectivists, but they only could become city council members by playing a political game, which I think waters down their objectivism and makes them not very good politicians at the end of the day. So I don't know. I mean, bad candidates, and the fact that the culture anywhere, including in the Mountain West, is not ready for it. Texas, objectivist, any objectivist candidate is going to be pro-abortion. How can he win in Texas? Can't win in Texas. So I don't know. James, and I think this is more broadly, you guys just, I don't know why, but you guys think that what I say on the Yaron Book Show is kind of mainstream, or not mainstream, but is electable anywhere on planet Earth. I don't know what you're not living in the same world as I am. The things I say here, representing, let's say, the objectivist attitude towards politics and political views, cannot win anywhere right now on planet Earth. An objectivist ran, I think, for Congress in Colorado. I mean, he did okay, but he couldn't win. There's just no way. James asks, how does Texas overtake California without high-quality universities? It has the most Fortune 500 companies in the country. It's going to be difficult without high-quality universities. It's going to be, but I don't think Texas will overtake California without California declining. So the way Texas overtakes California is not by being super duper successful. It's by Texas faltering. It's by Texas declining. And I think that's a lot of the progress already being made, even in population. It's not so much people excited to go to Texas, it's people want to leave California. And that's too bad. It would be better and much better if it was the other way around. I don't know if the other way around, but if it was that people were excited to go to Texas. All right, I just want to remind everybody, we're running a poll about if I went to a show where I just did 2 to 3 hours every day, right? No Saturday, no separation between the news show and a more in-depth show, but every show would be, first hour would be news, and then the second portion would be in-depth. What would be the best times for a show like that? And all of the times I've listed in the poll are East Coast times, and they're all PM. So I'm curious. I have a feeling today's show started very early, so I'm not surprised that people who like very early shows are in the majority right now. I wonder if I did the poll on my 8 p.m. show, if the poll would flip. We will see, because I'll do it on a number of different shows to see what happens. But I'm curious in terms of you. It seems like 12 to 2 right now is winning out. Although every time I've started a show at 12, that show has had the lowest number of live attendees as my other show. Shows that tend to start at 2 tend to have the highest. They tend to have over 100 people live at any given point in time. And here we're 69, 70. So I have a feeling the poll is biased by who's on right now. But I keep doing the poll and do it in different times, and let's see if it makes a difference. But this is, what is your preference for such a show? I am curious. It looks like 4 to 6 is the least popular time. It's the time people least want, which is good because it's probably the least convenient for me as well. All right, let's see. Lewis asks, how did the Soviet Union hold up for so long and become so powerful militarily, even stronger than other countries that had mixed economies, more individualist? Well, it didn't hold up for very long. I mean, Soviet Union held up to a large extent because of détente, because of help from the West. During a number of periods in the 70s, one that I remember, early 70s, there was real risk of famine in the Soviet Union. There was real risk of food shortages. And it's basically the United States that bailed them out and supplied them with food. We're talking about some of the most fertile land in the world under Ukraine and Russia. And yet they were starving, and the United States provided them with the means to feed themselves. Technologically, they survived by stealing from the atomic weapon know-how to pretty much everything else was a product of the Soviet Union stealing. So economically, they weren't surviving. They were dirt poor. They were on the verge of collapse a number of times. If not for U.S. help, if not for détente, if not for U.S. support, the Soviet Union would have ended a long time earlier than the Berlin Wall coming down in 1989. It would have happened a lot earlier. We, by supporting the Soviet Union, by supplying them with food and other products, by trading with them, basically allowed them to continue to survive. But it's very poor, under awful conditions. And then militarily, yeah, I mean, it was they were not strong militarily. What they had was lots of people, lots of weapons, and lots of nukes. And they poured much of their resources into building those nukes. Nukes are not that expensive to build. They built a lot of them. They built them fast. And so that's what you had. You had a huge number of nukes, and that constituted, Soviet military strength. They also had a lot of tanks, but awful tanks, not very well-functioning tanks. They, luckily for them, didn't really get into any wars. The one war they got into is the one in Afghanistan, and they lost that war. But they never got into a war with the West, and if they had, they would have been crushed, at least from a conventional weapon system. So no, the Soviet Union was in a lot worse shape than you guys think, and it survived to the extent that it survived only because of the assistance of the West. Roland says, university professors didn't worry about AI. Their jobs could have been replaced by parrots, but haven't. That's pretty good. Fed Harper says, you got the poll function figured out. Awesome. Yes. All right, so we've only got 59 people on the poll, 74 watching live now. So please consider voting in the poll. I really like to see. Right now, it's like, it's unhelpful because basically we've got, for every time slot, I've got like a quarter of you liking. So, the rest of you who haven't voted yet, please vote. Maybe you'll sway the poll a little bit. Maybe we'll get some better numbers. I don't know, but let's at least make an effort to get that up. So this is primarily for the reason I'm doing this on the live show is I'm basically asking for those of you who watch live. Would you watch live? Where would you most likely watch live? That's what interests me the most. All right. So basically, there's not clear favored. 12-2 is favored, but I suspect that's because we've got a lot of Europeans on. All right, I'll ask again tomorrow and during Saturday's show. So there will be a show tomorrow, 3 p.m. I will see you guys there. Thank you to all the super chatters. Thank you primarily to John for the payment for a review of an album. And Lewis has a quick question. Thought on the Cuban Missile Crisis. What would have to happen for the U.S. Had the U.S. retaliated after Soviets downed their plane? Which plane? I guess I'm not. Is this the? I'm not sure which plane you're talking about. But thoughts of the Cuban Missile Crisis? I thought Kennedy handled it okay. But I think it was absolutely right to demand the removal of the missiles from Cuba. It was this was in the midst of the Cold War. It's within our domain. The U-2. In terms of the U-2 plane, is that what he's asking about? What would have happened if the U.S. retaliated after Soviets downed the plane? Yeah, I mean, I don't think the U.S. would have retaliated and should have retaliated after downing. It was a military plane, clearly spying on the Russians. They had every right, if you will, to down the plane. It's a risk you take in the military. I don't think the U.S. should have gone to war for that, and I don't think they would have. There were other things that the United States should have been a lot tougher with the Soviets on, not helping them. But I don't think the downing of the U-2 plane should have been one of them. But I do think it was appropriate to be particularly tough on the Soviets vis-a-vis Cuba. All right. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you to all the super chatters. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to vote in the poll before you leave. And I will see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. East Coast time. It's Saturday, and a topic to be determined. I will post it as soon as I have the topic. Bye, everybody. See you soon.